Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Partners in Fours Podcast Summit Edition. We're here in the podcast stage on the final day of the summit. Looking forward to spending some time with you here today, and I'm joined with Steve Gordon from Million Dollar Author. So, Steve, thanks for being here today. Appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me for a few minutes.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is fun to do a recording pretty quickly after we've gotten to know each other, right? Came into the partnership program fairly recently, and it worked out that we're going to be here, obviously, at the Exit Planning Summit and had a chance to sit down. So for those out there listening that don't know who you are, you mind starting at a high level, just talking a little bit about who you are, kind of individually, and then a little bit about Million Dollar Author?
Absolutely. So I'm a recovering engineer. I spent about 12 years in engineering consulting and ran a firm and just fell in love with marketing professional services. It's very different than selling a product, right? Because you're selling yourself, you're selling trust. And so I started this company in 2010, just helping professionals market themselves. Was fortunate enough to figure out how to write a book in 2014, and it exploded my business. We doubled 3 years in a row and have grown ever since. And people started asking me back then, that looked like it worked really well. How'd you do it? Could you help me with it? And we started helping people, write a book to promote their practice. And here we are all these years later. That's all we do.
Okay. So talk to me about that. What was that first, because I've talked to some authors here. We had an author showcase event, and obviously we have the book Walking to Destiny that Chris wrote. But talk us a little bit about that experience of writing your first book.
Yeah. So I threw 2 manuscripts in the garbage over the course of about 2 years, 18 months, something like that. Third time, I said, I need to have a process. That's the engineer in me kicking in. I need to have a process for doing this. And so created a process on a Saturday to map that book out. And I was able to write it in an hour a day over the next 35 days. And then got lucky. Smartly lucky, I like to say. I leveraged all the relationships that I had when we launched the book, and that first week we launched it, 5,268 people got a copy from Amazon, and my business changed overnight. I went from 1.5 person consulting firm. I live in Tallahassee, Florida. I don't know if you know where Tallahassee is, but we're the 11th largest market in Florida, which means we're not very big. And I had nothing but local clients. And all of a sudden, within a week, I'm getting inquiries from all over the U.S., all over basically the English-speaking world, UK, some parts of Europe, and Australia, and just changed my life, changed my business overnight. And that's sort of the origin of how we got into this. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, and I remember right when I first started at EPI, it was February of 2016, and Chris Snyder, our CEO, was in the process of wrapping up the first edition of Walking to Destiny, and as you just described an experience, it's perhaps a more arduous process, particularly when you set out on your own to do it without the support or coach system. And then, interestingly enough, he went to do a revised version, which we have now, and he said, that'd be great. I've already got the bones. The first book, the second edition will be much easier. And he found it to be the complete opposite. He said it was actually much harder to distill what he wanted to add to the book and not make it it became a 600-page book, right? It just doubled, and say, okay, how do I pare back that down to a book that actually is something people will read? So did you, after the book, so was it Million Dollar Author after the book? What was it prior to, like, what was the evolution then from a practice perspective? How did that change?
Well, I was just marketing based on my name because it was just me for a long time. And then after the book, and we started offering that as a service, we changed the branding, and it's been fantastic. We've grown to a team of 39 now.
Wow.
And we do about 150 books a year for professionals.
That's fantastic. And I would imagine my interaction over the last decade is that it's certainly something people think about and want to do and say, but I don't know how to get started, right? Has that been your experience? I know you're relatively new into the community, but here at this event, for the past couple of days.
Well, so we've been here since Sunday night, I've lost count of how many people have come up to me and said, I've been thinking about writing a book forever, and and you're here, and so maybe this is the sign. But yeah, we hear that all the time. My current record, one of our clients told me he had waited 27 years. He'd been thinking about it 27 years before he finally wrote one, and he's now written 3 with us. He says it's the best thing he's ever done. And I hear that consistently. I've yet to talk to an entrepreneur who said, I really wish I'd waited longer to do this.
Yep, right.
Every one of them was like, I should have done this years ago.
Right. And I was actually just I was actually a minute late, I guess I was told, but I was got stopped by someone, and what we were just talking about was, and it sounds like in sort of hindsight's 2020, right? Like, I wish I would have done this sooner. It's positioning the value and the opportunity and the return on that on the front end, right? That's any sales work, right? It's when someone's going through the SEPA program or any other education program. Wow, this is really great. I should have done it 2 years ago, 5 years ago. So how do you, when, say, a professional advisor in this audience, right, comes to you, do you have a way of helping them, right? Like, if someone says, people were telling me to write a book, I just don't know what I would write it on. Is a part of your coaching, like, how to frame down to what the topic of the book, frankly, should be?
Absolutely, yeah. Really, if you think about a book that's going to be used to grow your practice, it's a marketing tool, and we want to build it around a solid marketing framework, a persuasive framework. And the best way to do that is just start with what's keeping your clients up at night, that, right before they come and work with you, that they're stressed about, they're worried about, they're doing math on the ceiling about it. Start with that problem first, because that's where their head is. We want to relate to them there. And then at the end of the book, we want to really paint an amazing picture of what life is going to be like for them after they've worked with you. So that's sort of our beginning of the story and the end of the story. And in between that, we connect it with what I like to call the yellow brick road. And that's what we would say is your unique mechanism, the unique 5 or 7 steps that you take someone through to get them from where they are today to where they want to be. And sometimes our clients come to us and they've got that all mapped out. Sometimes they don't know. And what we'll do is take them through an interview process with what we call a book strategist. And all of our strategists are entrepreneurs in their own right. They're either running a company now and they love to just have these conversations on the side, or they've exited and this is what they just love doing, talking to other business owners. And they'll pull that out, and we'll create brandable terms around it, and you'll end up with a process that you could trademark and
Sure.
really be, foundational IP for the business.
When someone maybe like, I guess you ended up doing it and wrote your own process, which is now the process, right? That then I'm sure it's evolved. But in your experience, do you get more clients or prospective clients coming to you to say, I haven't even started, I want to do this, like, where do I start? Or do you see folks who have tried it on their own and said, okay, I've thrown away 2 manuscripts, I obviously don't have the process in place, or is it a kind of a mix of both?
Well, yeah, we get a lot of both. We'd really love to get them before they've started, because, we've done this hundreds of times now, successfully. And for a new author, they might do it once in their life. And so if we can get them early, we can get them on the right path early. But sometimes we get people who are further down. We still want them to have the benefit of all this experience that we've amassed. And so sometimes that means going back and restructuring and reworking some of what they've done. So if we can avoid that by getting them early, so much the better.
Now, talk to me about the title process, right? To me, that's got to be like, okay, we've figured out how to condense down. Is it, well, first let me ask, do you start with the title and then build around that, or is it, let's build the concept and then pick a title and then let me see.
Yeah, great question. And we get people coming to us all the time. They've had this pet title in their head for years, and they just think it's the coolest, most clever thing. And the problem with that is that it's only clever in the 6 inches between their ears, and nobody else gets the joke. And And that's not always true. Sometimes people have legitimately great titles. I just was working with one of our clients this week, and he had walked in with a great title. But more often than not, they've got this thing that doesn't mean anything to anyone else but them. So we've got a 6-part process that we go through to develop titles. We develop 40 titles to start with in 4 different styles. And that gives us a bit of a word palette to work with to find what's going to resonate with their client base based on what they know, and what's going to be direct. What I tell our clients all the time is clear beats clever all day long. And so if we can't come up with something super clever and clear, let's just be clear. Because if the title doesn't sell someone on picking up the book and opening it and reading it, and that's its only job, is to get somebody to open that book, then we failed, because nobody's going to know how great the stuff is inside.
I'm learning so much on the fly here. This is so interesting to me. And I'm thinking about how we're sitting in Nashville, right, the country music capital of the world. And I was just thinking about, from that title perspective, like here, I was just listening to a podcast the other day with a singer-songwriter, and they just come up with titles it's just like, oh, I've got this. Someone says something out loud, and you're like, that's a song, and then they build a song into it. Yeah, I think clear over clever. I like that. Now you're also then thinking about, okay, if this is on a shelf at the Barnes and Noble or in the airport, right? It's a title, but it's also visual. There's got to be a visual component to it too. So can you talk to us about the process of an author? What is it going to look like? Branding, colors, fonts, all.
Sure. Yeah, it depends on the goal. So every author's a little bit different. We work with people who are just trying to build their practice in their state or their local market. That's a little bit different than some of our clients who are trying to go, big nationally. And so the way I think about it is, where is this book likely to live? So it might get discovered in a bookstore. More likely it's going to get discovered in Amazon. And if you've been on Amazon, you get a little thumbnail. And so a lot of times there we work with very bright, vivid colors because those catch the eye. But the most valuable real estate that a book will ever own is the corner of the desk on that $1 million client of yours that hasn't pulled the trigger yet. And that's one of the reasons that I think books are so powerful. I'll tell you a story. This experience I had 2 years after writing my first book. I get on a Zoom call with this guy from the UK. He had booked on, through our website, didn't know who he was. And he gets on the call and he says, I haven't read your book, in his very British accent. I'm never going to read your book. And I'm going, what in the world is this conversation? This is the strangest start of a sales call I've ever had. And he said, I've had your book. A buddy gave me your book, which is instructive in and of itself. It's a great way to get referred passively. Buddy gave me your book. I put it on my nightstand. I've intended to read it for 2 years. I see it in the morning. I see it at night. I haven't cracked it yet. I know I'm never going to crack it, but I want what it says on the title. And so you're my guy. The sale was made in 5 minutes because he didn't read it, but I owned real estate next to his bed. And he saw that twice a day. That's probably the most valuable real estate in his world. And if you think about it, that's the power of a physical book. We're here at this conference, and you've got great sponsors here, and they're all giving away little things. But I don't know about you. When I go to a conference and I get the bag of little things, a lot of times I have to make decisions about what's going in the suitcase to make it home on the airplane because I don't have room. Books always go home. I got 2 books in the bag checking in here. Those are going home with me. The rest of it's got to stay.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. I typically, when I'm at conferences, I walk around and say, what are the kids going to play? What are the kids like, right? So any potential sponsors out there, look for the items for the kids. But this is really fascinating to me. So, and I want to circle back to you. You made a comment about, or talked about how some folks come to you with a title, and it's clever and it's only funny in their own head. But not unlike tying it back to the SEPA community and working with business owners, right? We talk about calling someone's baby ugly, right? Is there's got to be a way in which you say in gentler terms, that's a terrible title, right? So how do you navigate the process of telling someone maybe that's not the best, or does it come to them naturally?
It often doesn't come to them naturally, but part of what they're investing in us for is to give them real advice. Like, we wouldn't be serving them well if we let them go out into the world with a title that doesn't work. Now, if they insist, obviously it's their book, they can do what they want, but usually what we'll do is explain to them why we think it won't work and what we think would be a better approach, and usually they go, oh, that makes complete sense, and they pivot.
Is there ever a time, like, is there a experience or a way you can say on the front end when you're talking to someone, I just don't think we're going to fit with it? Like, is it like they have a mindset, they're too rigid? Like, is there a way to say, like, or maybe like this is going to be too arduous to accomplish? Like, if you turn away clients, right?
Occasionally. So we only want to work with growth-minded entrepreneurs. And so when we come across someone who isn't of that mindset, that's usually not a good fit for us. If it's really just a vanity thing, because we don't just write the book. Writing a book is relatively easy. I mean, we've done it so many times now. We've got a process for it. We make it look easy. That's our job. But writing the book just gets you to the start of the race. The race is now, what do I do with this to grow my business? And I've seen it happen now enough times to know there's something, we call it the author effect. I experienced it that first week that I described of my first book launching, but I get text messages now from our clients after they launch, and I try to explain it to them before they get there, but then they launch and they're going, oh my gosh, I just got invited to a speaking event. Oh my gosh, this client that I've been trying to reach forever just called. Like, all these things start happening that they weren't expecting, that are new. And the reason that happens is that the minute you publish a book, actually the minute you say you're writing a book and you're going to publish it in the next few months, you grow in how people see you. They begin to see you as a leader in the marketplace. And part of the reason for that is that when surveyed, 84% of Americans claim that they want to write a book. It's on their bucket list. And so if you think about it, what you're doing in becoming a published author is you're doing something aspirational. 84% of the population, not just business owners, the total population aspires to do this, and now you're ahead of them on that journey, and they're looking up to that. So you get this level of authority and credibility immediately. And that really changes everything. It opens all kinds of doors. People will come out of the woodwork to support you. The reason I was able to launch my book and over 5,000 people get a copy of it in a week wasn't because I knew 5,000 people. I had a database of less than 1,000 people at the time. But I had relationships through networking, through my, just my contact network, and people came from everywhere wanting to share that and sort of celebrate in that accomplishment. And we see that again and again with our clients. It's very powerful.
Yeah, no, that's all, again, super, super insightful. You talked about getting text messages of people after and kind of blowing up, almost like a form of stardom, if you will, right? And what processes do you have in place, like, for preparing to try to prepare them for that afterward, right? That sort of influx of interest, demand, capacity issues might become a question for what's the kind of conversation like with someone as they're thinking about, like, what's the almost like post-launch strategy, right? We hope it goes extremely successfully, but what can they do to think through that?
So we call those classy problems. Like, I look at my role as creating classy problems for clients. And it's a little bit different for every business because every business scales a little bit differently. And every business owner, when you talk about scale to them, it means something different. Some want to stay small in terms of the size of their team. Some want to grow their team. So, once you create excess demand, which the book does every time, then you have some choices to make. So you can stay small and raise your fees, and you're going to make more money without doing a lot more work. That's one way to scale. For others, they want to scale with their team and use it as a tool, to expand the business regionally, nationally, internationally. So it really depends on what the business owner is looking to do. but we've guided enough people through this now that the levers to pull are pretty well known. Sure. And I think, we talked a lot about the book itself. One of the things that I've heard a number of times here is I've had advisors come up to me and they said, well, I wrote this book. I worked with somebody else, or I did it on my own. I self-published it, whatever. And I don't know what to do with it now. And I think for everybody that's watching or listening to this, you want to think about what comes after the day that you publish. What I see a lot is authors put all of this effort in, sometimes over multiple years, unfortunately, to get this book out. And maybe they do a little bit with a launch, and it shoots up a little bit, and usually within 2 or 3 months, it's back to nothing again because they didn't have a plan for what should happen after the launch. And the thing I want to leave everyone with is, number one, don't let it take 2 years. Like we get books done in 90 days for people. Wow. The longer you take, the more money you are costing yourself. You're taking money out of your pocket because a book will make you money if you have a marketing system for it. And you want to make sure that you've got a plan for how am I going to use this week in and week out, month in and month out for the next decade. Because if you invest in a book, you're buying a marketing asset. Running ads is a tactic, networking is a tactic, all these other things are tactics. And when you stop investing in them, they stop working. But a book has long-term payoff. I still get clients from the first book I wrote 12 years ago every month. And we're not promoting it as nearly as much as we should because we're promoting the newer ones. But it's still bringing people in because we've planted these seeds that are coming, ready to harvest now. And so you want to think about what's that plan and what's the plan that I can execute as the business owner. It can't be a cookie cutter thing. I found that marketing fails when in professional services, at least, it fails when it doesn't match the personality of the business owner and how they want to show up in the world. So if you love to be on stages like this, I want to put you on stages like this. If you can't stand being in front of people, if I try and force you to do that, you're just going to stop. And so it has to fit you.
Well, I think that's a great way to kind of wind it down. So before we go, can you just tell everyone where they can find out more about you, website, how to contact you guys? Like where can they learn more?
Absolutely. You can go to milliondollarauthor.io and you can get all the information about our process there. You can book a call and talk with my team, and I'm on LinkedIn and post a lot. And you can also find me at substack.stevegordon.io. I write about growing professional services practices, creating what we call a freedom firm.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Steve. Appreciate the time. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the partnership, and look forward to continuing that. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.